Hello, what up? It's John, your movie madman, and I'm back. Today is the second video that I'll be doing for book versus film. Might be more exciting than the last one, but who knows? I guess you'll decide. I guess you will. Today we're talking about Jurassic Park versus Jurassic Park, book versus film. Now, I've talked about the 4K side of Jurassic Park before, but this video is more about comparing them, sort of thing. That's why it's called book versus film. There's no question about it. I'll tell you that, in my personal opinion, and from other people's opinions that have read the book and seen the film, so far, the book wins. The book wins easily. I mean, to be fair to Steven Spielberg, he did a good job on the movie, and it is a good film. I'll tell you that. It's one of my top PGs. One of the only films that actually scare me is the first Jurassic Park. But the book, I tell you what, if they put everything that was in this book in this film, it would probably be an 18. So this book starts where The Lost World starts, and then it moves on to the after effect of the opening scene of this film. So they did well. That the opening scene of this film basically explains something that happens in the book that you don't see. You see it in the film, but then it goes on, and there's a bit in a nursery where those little dinosaurs from The Lost World are eating a baby, and you're just like, Jesus. It's actually mad, and it's pretty graphic as well. In the book they talk about like these dinosaurs ripping off flesh off the baby's face and all this sort of thing, and you're just like, there's no way that would be in a PG movie. There's no way that would be in a PG-13 or a 12, or would definitely be an R-rated /18. I think I'm pretty sure that if you tear flesh off a baby's face, that would probably make it an 18 or a very, very strong 15. But the film goes on. You lose some characters in the book that you don't lose in the film, and vice versa. Some of the characters that die in the film survive in the book. I remember specifically there's a character in the film, the guy that's a lawyer, the man that gets eaten on the toilet seat by the T-Rex in the film. He's a much more likeable character in the book, and he's got much more character depth in the book as well. So that was one of the things I remember really enjoying. The thing that scares me the most in the film is probably the scene with the Dilophosaurus. If you remember, the dinosaur that eats the big fat man with the glasses, when its thing comes out and he spits on him, and then he's in the taxi with him. Again, that's a lot more graphic in the book. The dinosaur is also twice the size in the book. When you look at the dinosaur in the film, it basically looks like a dog that's got some weird thing around its head, like one of those dog cones. Maybe that's what they did. They were like, oh, we'll get a dog and put a cone on its head. I think they say that the dinosaur is like 6 foot, 7 foot tall in the book, whereas in the film it's a lot smaller. But also, a bit more scary for you, the Dilophosaurus comes back later in the book as well. I'm pretty sure there's a moment where there's 2 of them, and they're chasing Alan and the kids, and you're just like, oh, scary stuff. There's a lot of really intensely, not scary, but there's a lot of really tense moments in this book involving characters and dinosaurs that just aren't in the film. I don't know if they were cut because of the tension and they wanted to try and keep this at a lower rating. I mean, obviously there are parts of the book that they cut out to keep the lower rating, or more just because they didn't want to involve it. But I know that I'd say about 75% of the time Steven Spielberg's films are very child friendly, and even when he does use violence, it's only ever in sync with the story. Films like Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, the films of his that get R ratings, the violence is in tone with the story. So he's not one of these directors that makes films overly violent on purpose. Whereas when you read the book, you can tell that Michael Crichton has done it in a way, well, obviously it's a book, so books are always going to be more graphic than the film. From what I have noticed from books that I've read, the books have always been more graphic than the films when it comes to violence, when it comes to tension. But I'll tell you what, out of all of the books that I read during lockdown, this has probably been my favourite book. I noticed the other day that one of my friends at work was reading the book, and I was like, I love that book, and he was like, yep, I love this book as well, it's so much better than the film. And it was like the second or third time he was reading it, so I was like, that's mad. So it did make me think, do you know what, I want to go back and read this book again. So definitely going to be on my list for a reread. But yeah, I mean, not really sure what else to say to fill time. So I would say if you like reading books and you like Jurassic Park, then definitely read this book, because it's so good. It's such a good read. It's not too long, it's not short. I mean, the writing's pretty small. And it's not overly thick, but it's quite small. I don't know if you could tell, but the book itself is actually quite small. If you put it in front of that, you can see quite how small the book is. You see what I mean? It's not an overly tall book, but I mean it's only 450 odd pages long, so it's not overly long. It just looks a bit thicker because the pages are a bit thicker, if that helps. So go with that. I'd go with that. When this first came through the post, I was a bit like, that looks like a really long book. But once you start reading it, you don't care. You really get into it. I really got into it, and I struggle getting into books, and I got into this like straight away. I was just like, wow, this is really good. Like those first few chapters, you're just like, wow, it's actually not a bad book. So let's stop talking about dinosaurs and books now. I hope that was an exciting second part of book versus film for you. I've got a bunch more on the way. Obviously I told you about the Hannibal book versus films that I'm going to be doing. I've also got the Maze Runner trilogy. I'm going to go into that as well. I can also talk about the 4K side of those 4K Blu-rays as well, because I have them too. And there will be other book versus films on the way as well, so look out for them. I'm gonna go now though. Thanks for watching this video. If you could like it, click on that thumb, that'd be great. If you really could click on that thumb, would appreciate the likes. If you could subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, that would also be great. So thank you for your support, and I'll see you again later. Alright.